So how many of you have already seen me do a lot on Quality Parenting Initiative or a little on quality? Great, this is really good. So Linda's done a great job in getting people involved and keeping people involved. So I'm not going to just talk about the Quality Parenting Initiative. I'm going to talk about redesign, and it's going to be very repetitive with what Glenn said, because even though we come from totally different roles and we have very different personalities, we actually have the same values. And I, of course, can hardly even remember what's on here, so we're all going to be surprised as we move from slide to slide. So this is my first principle. People are like, so I follow the press every place where I am, which means I follow a lot of press. Here's an interesting thing when you read press about child welfare. If you don't go down to the byline, you have no idea what jurisdiction it's from, because the articles are all the same from every single state. So like at some point, somebody in every state will discover that we have a lot of relatives caring for kids, and there'll be an article about what a scandal that is, and we're not helping them. There'll be an article about we're leaving too many kids at home. There'll be an article about we're taking too many kids away. So, and so I'm saying this, saying I also follow the Texas press, and I see there's a lot of fear of what is redesign going to do. Isn't this going to be scary? Isn't it going to be a mistake? And this is what I have to say. Come on, child welfare isn't working that well right now. I'm not saying that you individually here are not doing a great job for kids. I'm not saying that some kids don't get a great service. In fact, I think they do. I think we underestimate ourselves a lot. But it's not like, oh, it's a fabulous system. How can we veer away from it? Every one of us here is saying, I don't know why it's not working for me. I don't understand. The other people in this system aren't really doing their part. Something is going wrong. Do you agree with me? It's not really working now. So why are we afraid of a change? It's not going to get that. It's not a problem. We really need to do that. As I said, so what is there to be afraid of? And as I said above here, especially out-of-home care. And that is because I know a lot. How many of you have to do with child placing agencies or work with the like? Great. You all have a really thankless task. And here's why I think you have a thankless task. We don't focus a lot on this in child welfare. We focus a lot on who we removed. Did we reduce the number of kids we removed? Did we reunify them faster? Did we get our court reports in on time? Did we get kids adopted? What happens in between? You all, every night, go home and worry about what's happening in between. But we don't get a lot of focus on that until a disaster happens, and then we get a tremendous amount of focus. So the good work you do every day doesn't really get recognized and doesn't really get supported to the extent I bet every one of you who is doing this would like. You all, as you know, how many people are here have met me before? You know I'd need a lot of feedback, so you all can nod if you agree. So now I'm saying, as I'm trying to say, even if there's not that much to be afraid of. We have a long way to go, and we can go there if we change a lot. And this is why I said I'm going to be just like Glenn, because, oh, wait a second. Also, a break. Every single one of my slides is exactly the same format. I decided it was distracting, so you do not have to look for good pictures. There are none. Everyone is this. Here's my view. I just want you to hear my words. I do not care if you say, where did she get that graphic online? I'm not interested. Here's my view, without just what Glenn said. If we don't take a risk and move beyond where our comfort zone is, but our kids' comfort zone is not, we can never move forward. So we all have to take a chance, not do what we're comfortable doing, which I actually think, as an advocate, we're really comfortable saying, gee, I'm doing a great job. I wonder if only they help me a little more. We really have to change that, and I think that redesign gives you a chance because you're it's a chance to bring everyone together and rethink it. And this is the most important thing. Redesign cannot be, this shows you my age, I might say, but those of you who are even close to my age know what I'm talking about. It can't be meet the new boss, same as the old boss. It can't be, oh, well, we've restructured this a little bit, the payments are coming through a little differently, we're gonna have a slightly different computer system. But from a kid's point of view, it's going to be really similar. From our attitude point of view, it's going to be really similar. Then we're wasting a ton of people's time, including everybody in this room. We have to have a real change. And so we have to go big or go home, which I always wanted to say and never had a chance to say before. But that's what we have to do. And I look at Wayne and Gary and Linda, all the people who are doing it. I look at you and I say, it has to be a whole change to make it worth going through all of this hassle. It has to be big. So that's kind of, I think, the same as what Glenn was saying, but maybe in just fewer words. All right, and this is what Glenn is getting at, it's what Rick is getting at, and it's the only thing that actually matters at all. Right now, I believe, and those of you who've heard me before, I tried not to be repetitive, but I'm gonna say it again. We expect children to fit their needs into our system. I'm not saying we expect that any one of us consciously, we all know that's wrong, but you know that's the way it is. If you need something that we have, that will be great for you. You need something we've never heard of before, why don't you just need something else? Because we've never heard of that before. If you're gonna fit, like if our flavor of the month is everyone goes with relatives, then if you've got some great relatives, that's good. If you've got some mediocre relatives, I'm really sorry, but everyone goes with relatives. We really try to make kids fit into the system instead of saying every child is different, instead of the way we treat our own children. So how many of you have kids? Or know a kid, or were a kid? And how many of you have more than one kid? And how many of you treat those two kids alike? None of us. We do, I mean, maybe actually when you start getting up to 10 and 12, people start treating them alike because they can't keep it organized. But for most of us, we treat our children really differently. My daughter gets way different from what my son gets, not because they're male and female, but because their personalities are different. If I want my son to do something differently, I don't even raise my voice. I just quietly say, that really upsets me and hurts my feelings when you did that. And he melts immediately. If I want my daughter to do something different, this is another story. We go over this and over it, and I treat her differently. I did not send my kids to the same school. I didn't say he liked that school, you love that school too for college. So do you see what I'm saying? We can't treat these kids like this either. We can't be surprised. You know, it's like, I love listening to Rick because he actually has facts and all I have is opinions, but that fact that if you move 4 more times, that is stressful for you and you wind up showing bad behaviors, to be surprised about that is to give up everything we ever knew about life and pretend that somehow children, once they come into the child welfare system, they're something different. They're units of care. And should that unit of care be affected, anybody who moves even with their whole family 4 times, it's stressful. So again, child-centered system, I'm belaboring this point because if we only did that, if every single thing we did, we said we're going to look at this to see, is this going to be great for this child, it would be a totally different world. So I think what I think about reorganizing itself, just reorganizing wouldn't be reforming. We're talking about reforming. We know just what I know Wayne has said a million times, Gary has said, and Glenn is saying now. The network is as good as the providers, which means that everyone is going to raise. You might be already doing fabulous work, but we can always do better. Everyone has to raise their view. If nothing changes, nothing changes. The way that we're doing business has to, I say we, maybe I should say you, it has to change somewhat. It has to be more than just we put together a group of people who are all doing things one way. We have to do it differently, and that includes the state agency too. This is a huge opportunity, and I just want to say this other thing. There's always the side of child welfare reform which says, and it's gonna be great because you know what? In the end, it's gonna cost less. And I've gotta say, really, why? We don't spend enough as it is, to tell you the truth. And we shouldn't be saying, this is going to be cheaper. It's gonna be better, we're gonna spend better, but I don't think we should expect an underfunded system, underfunded in staff, underfunded in resources, to just be cheaper all the time. I think that we should be expecting that our money is spent better, but I don't think people should say, oh, and now, because it's privatized, either for Wayne, Glenn, or anyone, it's now gonna cost us way less. But of course, I'm an advocate. So these are the you can tell me if I'm going too long. These are the 5 opportunities. You know what's really bad? Quality starts with that hard C sound, but it starts with a Q. So it looks really bad here, but if I said them to you, it would sound really good. Okay, so just imagine I had put KW there instead. That would be good. So I think the opportunities are, first of all, coordination. This brings us a chance to have some basic consistency, or brings you a chance. I know you have tons of people doing this work, and you have the public agency. Now you can say, so those of you who know QPI, you can say, this is what fostering is going to be like in our community. So you can say, we're going to all agree on this. We can do our recruitment all together. That doesn't mean that faith-based agencies are no different from non-faith-based. That doesn't mean that an agency that specializes in siblings has to now go and do babies. But it doesn't mean we can always put our stuff together, private agencies and public agencies, and it means that I'm looking at Juan and Linda, you can do a communications, a media campaign that goes for everyone. That's a huge, I don't want to say savings in money, but an ability to use your money more wisely because you're pooling some kinds of resources. I think this consistency in community standards is what's, as you know, really the important thing to me. Again, that we're competing on style, not on messages. I don't believe anyone should say, you know what's great about working for our agency? You never have to see a birth parent. We're never going to make you talk to a birth parent. We know you don't like birth parents. All you have to do is be here, take care of the baby, hope that the birth parent goes away. I don't think that's how people should compete. I think people can compete by saying, when we work with birth parents, we use this intervention, which we think is really successful, and someone else can say, well, we're faith-based, so we have you meet at the churches, but the basic standards have to be the same. And the reason I think this is, also, we've got to get away from, so I'm not saying it's a bad thing to reduce the number of kids in care. I definitely think it's a good thing to reduce the length of stay. But I think we should give up the idea that going into foster care is a terrible thing. I think we have some belief about that in our own community. I think that belief goes to investigators and they feel like, oh, I'm doing a terrible thing. I think that belief goes to the public, and I believe it's just not true for every kid. I don't want to go in the hospital, but I'll tell you right now, if I have appendicitis, I don't want to sit around here going, well, hospitalization is really bad. I'm not going to the hospital. Some kids, so again, I'm asking you out there, a child in a family can benefit from foster care. It is a valid intervention. We don't have to think this is the worst thing that ever happened to a kid in the world. And I will venture to say that for those of you who've done this for a while, you know birth parents who will say the greatest thing that ever happened to me is the kids came into care, I met that fabulous family, they have worked with me since, we're all still friends, things have totally changed. And I can tell you for a certainty that I know adults who were in the system who say, I would not have lived without that system. That system changed my life completely. So again, if we have consistency, you might wonder, what does this have to do with anything? If we have consistent standards, if our child welfare system is developmentally informed, so that the way we're taking care of kids integrates all of the knowledge that we now have about how children develop and how children learn and what is going to help them, we can see this as something that we can be proud of and can be proud of community-wide. So, in order to get to that, you'll see this does sort of fit together, and all the slides are the same. In order to get to that, what do you have that's a new advantage? To me, again, I'm not anti-public system. I'm fine with public systems. I'm looking at public systems people and saying I support public systems, but here's what public systems are not: flexible. Public systems, it is so difficult. Our SACWIS systems, our computer systems would be working if public systems had any flexibility, but they don't, because it takes them forever to make a rule. It takes them forever to make a contract. Then once they've made it, it takes them forever to change. It's very difficult. Do you agree with me? But now, you have a lot of this now absorbed in the private sector. which means, just as you were saying yesterday, Wayne, you can try something out. If it doesn't work, that's unfortunate. We'll try something, a different thing. If it works, but we need a few little changes, we can do that. If we really want to work in this one, we can just try a lot more out. That's a huge advantage to you all, because having talked to lots of you, I know you all have lots of great ideas. And those ideas, you get a chance to try them without waiting while it goes all the way to Austin, all the way back. Then you had to clarify something, then you have to clarify it again. And again, you're lucky in that your regional people are really supportive of this, so that's terrific. And among those, I don't know why I have an ing there, because staffing, because I don't know why it doesn't think, I don't understand why it broke that up that way, but it did. So it gives us a chance. This is QPI, which I said I promised I wouldn't talk about, and I'm not going to talk about it. But we can have a completely different view of recruitment, support, how are we staffing. I didn't even say placement, and I'm not going to go into community focus because Glenn has gone all the way into community focus. But the reality is just what Glenn said. This whole system cannot work until the whole community understands it's their responsibility to make it work. You are really lucky, I'm saying to Wayne, because your board members are so committed, they're actually here as community board members. People in business know a lot about recruitment and a lot about HR. People in business know how to communicate with people. They have employees who can be your foster parents. Until everyone realizes that caring for these children can't help until we all help together, then it can't really work. So a community focus, Glenn, I think is 100% right. Quality assurance, I think, is going to be easier when we're all on the same scale. So we were talking about this morning. When we start to make part of quality assurance really quality, not just numbers, then we're going to be a lot better off. And we have a good chance to start to say, we really want to look at quality. We want to look at how did our kids feel about their experience? How do our social workers feel about the experience they're having with our caregivers? How do our caregivers feel about the support they're getting? So when we start to do 360 quality, which I think you really have a better chance of doing with this new system, it's going to be great. So that's why I'm saying outcome-based and beyond. I'll tell you what, my director of my program is a child who was in this system. At age 10, she ran away from home. And there's only one way, if you're a girl, to support yourself when you're age 10 and run away from home. So she was what we now call trafficked. She worked on the streets until she became afraid one day that her pimp would beat her up, so she turned herself in. She was in she was in just the juvenile justice system. She was in the mental health system. She never actually once was in a foster home. She is extremely successful. She's brilliant. She has 2 great kids. Her outcome was terrific. That doesn't matter to me. I don't really feel like we can let people suffer, but if their outcomes are okay, it's fine. We have to really look at what is the experience that everyone is going through, not just what are the actual numbers that came out. And this is, I think, my last slide. I will tell you in 1 minute. Yes, it was. Okay. So this is my last slide, and I see on my time it's my last time, so I can move off of my little X's. Those of you who know me, again, know that little X is totally making me crazy. So my last slide is the last thing that we can focus on, which is very hard for government agencies to focus on. And I know, because I've been with a lot of government agencies, is customer service. You know, I understand people can't go to the other child welfare system. Mostly people didn't want to be in the child welfare system, so we have a tendency to be like, oh, well, there's no need for customer service we don't have profits, we need customer service. And we can start, as private agencies banded together, we can start to have a real focus on, are we giving great customer service to our foster families? Because I'll tell you, they can't go to another foster care system. This is the foster care system. You know what they can go to? Big brothers and big sisters. They can go to the PTA. They can go to the Red Cross. They can go to a lot of other volunteer activities. So we need them, and we need to give them excellent customer service, and we can. We can give birth families excellent customer service, and that includes our foster families as part of our partners in giving them, yeah, they didn't want to be in this system, and they probably didn't want to be in the situation that got us in the system, but they can still have excellent customer service from us. And most importantly, we do not have to hear from children. I'm saying this for Linda's benefit. We do not have to hear from children, you know, I wish they'd change something about the foster care system. I was with that family, and when all their kids got together for dinner, they told us, go upstairs because you're the foster kids. We do not have to hear from children. It was really terrible. I had to move from home to home. We don't have to hear from children, as I have from my director. I was always in group care, so the entire time I was in foster care, no one ever touched me once, because it's against the rules to touch children who are in care. We don't have to hear from that. We can give our children excellent customer service, and I think that is the opportunity that you all have right now. I hope Quality Parenting Initiative is a big part of that opportunity. I really appreciate the fact that you're all here in the afternoon right before Thanksgiving, and that's all I have to say, as you know, because I have no more slides.